Hey beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. I hope y'all are excited. You saw the title, you know why I'm here, I know why I'm here. Let's just get into it, okay? I did a thing. I picked it up and I'm going to be showing it. For whatever reason, I thought I should come on camera with nothing on my skin so you really see what my skin tone is, because I feel like this is a conversation as much about this Hourglass palette. I don't necessarily want to call it a review yet. I have had it for 2 weeks, but I haven't used it for a full 2 weeks yet because I started to get sick. If you check my community post, I had said that COVID is wiping out my office, and it is. So I started to get sick. I didn't have COVID, but I just was feeling really bad. Oh, I opened it the wrong way. So let's open this bad boy up. I did put it back in here to show y'all that this is how it comes. Okay. And it would have normally slid out. This comes, let's just take this off together. Oh my God. And y'all, I feel like for the last couple of years, Hourglass has put out palettes, and there thankfully has only been one design that I like. So in this video, I'm gonna take you through showing you what's in this palette. I'm gonna show you swatches. We're gonna do a full application on my face. I am gonna put on my base and all of that. And then I am also going to do some comparisons. Now, the only palette I have that I can compare it to is last year's Leopard palette, but I'm definitely going to do that because I know that this is the palette that a lot of women of color grabbed, for those of us that did grab it. So I thought it was important to do some comparison and talking about it. So let's do that. Let's get into it. So I'm going to do my face and stuff, and I'll be right back. Okay, people, I'm back. I've put on my foundation, my concealer, and my brows. But, you know, don't get me started on my brows. Let's swatch it. So this is what, let me get this thing really quick. So this is what the palette looks like up close. I'll hold it there for a minute so you can really see it. This shade is actually a little bit brighter in person. Not a ton than what it's showing up. Actually, yeah, that's pretty true to color. Maybe just a tad bit brighter, okay? But everything else is looking really true to color. And then I'll just remind you, if you have the Leopard palette from last year, which was the 2023 palette, what they look like. So this is the Lotus palette. Lotus, Leopard. And I think we can see that things in here do appear to be deeper. Okay. So let's do some swatches. Okay, y'all, I actually decided to swatch them on my arm so I have enough room, and you can, let me move my watch out the way, so I have enough room and you can see all the shades. So I'm sorry about that. So the first shade is our highlighter, and it's in Gilded Strobe Light. Okay, so that's this shade right here. Did I? Okay, I thought I nicked it. Okay, so that's our first shade. That's the highlighter. Can you see that? That's our highlighter. The second shade is our first blush, and it is in Desert Flush. Different finger. Okay. That's the first blush. It's like a peachy pink. More peachy, I would say. Okay. Grab some extra napkins. The third shade is our finishing powder, and it is in Eternal Light. Okay. That is the finishing powder. Okay, our fourth shade is the other highlighter in the palette, and it's called Radiant Rose Strobe Light. So that's this one right here. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so let's put that one here. Oh my God, that's actually beautiful. Okay, our fifth shade, not me struggling to count, our fifth shade is the blush, the other blush, and it's in Red O. I know a lot of people were excited about this, and so was I. That's Red O. Okay, my arm tied. And we're gonna put that right here. That's Red O. Okay. And then our final shade is the bronzer, and it is in Bronze Heat, and that's it right here. So this is the bronzer, again, in the shade Bronze Heat. And that is our bronzer. Okay, so we're gonna put this all over my face. I will hold my hand up again so you can see that. And if you're wondering actually how the bronzer compares to the bronzer from last year that was called Solar Bronze, I will swatch it. So this is the bronzer from, hold on. This is the bronzer from last year's palette. This is the new bronzer. This is the old bronzer from 2023. This is the new one that just came out this year for 2024. Definitely deeper. So let's put this bronzer right next to the other one. So this is the bronzer from last year. This is the bronzer from this year. Definitely a difference. Okay, beautiful people. So let's put this on our face. Also, can we talk about the packaging? I actually love the packaging of this palette. I think it's really well made. I've dropped this multiple times, unfortunately. Nothing has ever broke, thank God, or anything like that. And I use this palette all the time, especially when getting ready for work. So I am super excited to have this one. And this is actually my favorite packaging that they've ever done. I wasn't crazy about any of the packagings last year, but I thought the leopard was the least ugly, even though I don't technically actually like it. But this one, I love the packaging of. But anyway, so you get that big mirror again, and then the shades. So I'll show them to you one more time. And let's put them on. So let's put on the bronzer first, girl, and I'm using clean brushes for all of this. So I normally use a smaller brush for my bronzer. I don't really know how people be putting on a bronzer, but I'm using this Real Techniques contour brush. And I be having to remind myself which shade is which. I'm pretty sure this is the bronzer. Yes, down here. So I'm gonna dip into the bronzer. You don't get much fallout with the Hourglass shades, to be honest with you. They are very smooth, buildable powders. So you can even build them up on themselves. So I'm gonna try to see if I can figure out how to zoom in editing. But until then, I'm gonna get a little bit closer to make sure y'all can see me. I hope this video ain't janky. But let's see. Oh, now they're giving me a bronze. Oh my gosh. I finally have a Hourglass bronzer. Let's try to build it up a little bit. How about that? Oh my goodness. Do you see that? Right, it's not just me, right? Like, oh yeah. That bronzes. And I'm still doing a pretty light bronze, but let's do just a little bit here. I see people do it in the hollows of the cheek. Like I said, honestly, I'm tapping off. Literally, there's nothing to tap off. You don't see that? So this is definitely, finally, a really good bronzer shade. I think if Hourglass really wants to go there, which you should, come on out with one more and go even deeper. But this is a good deep bronzer. However, let me know if you are like very chocolatey skin. Let me know how this bronzer does for you, because obviously, you know, I'm more like medium deep. So let me know how this bronzer shows up for you. I did see one lady review the palette who has deeper skin tone than me, and it did bronze her and she did like it, but I'm just putting on a little bit more to show y'all. So yeah, you can build this thing up. And I'm gonna take this bigger brush so that I'm not having a line of demarcation. So that is the bronzer. Now for the two blushes, I'm actually gonna try on both blushes. I'm just gonna put one on each cheek. So I got both of my brushes here. So I'm gonna start with like the peachy blush. Now Hourglass, I have thoughts on this, but let's put it on first. So let's get a little, you know, like I said, a little bit comes off, but not much. So we're gonna put the peachy one over here. And it is a light peach. I don't know if y'all can see that. See, it's showing up lighter on camera than it is in person. In person, I can see the blush at this point, but on camera, I feel like it looks very light. So I actually like a nice peachy blush, and I think this blush is really pretty. My only concern is that putting this color in the deeper palette, again, I think if you were gonna do a true medium deep to deep, right? Hear me again, medium deep to deep, perfect. And then an actual deep tone palette, right? I have some suggestions, which we'll get to in a minute, Hourglass. I'm gonna try to build this up a little bit more just so y'all can see it on the cheeks. Let me know if you can see it. I can see it, but like I said, on camera, it's coming off really light. In person, oh yeah, that cheek is peachy. And then let's do the other one, which is Red O. I was very excited to see this in a palette. Can you see that? That one shows up almost like more immediately. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, and I'm gonna go a little bit heavier than how I would wear my blush outside. Just a tiny bit heavier. The whole point is to see, will this work for us in everyday life? So I'm not trying to build this up a ton. I'm trying to show you how I would actually wear my blush. So this one, again, I feel like it's a struggle on camera to see it. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm doing my best with my lighting setup. But that does bring me to my first criticism of this palette. Yes, I can see it in person. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love a peachy blush. I think there could have been a better choice made in this palette when this is your only deep skin tone palette. For instance, and this is where I think doing your research comes in. This is where I think knowing your audience. If this is your palette for people of color, women of color, right? Let's think about what looks good on our skin tone. First of all, this is one of my favorite blushes from NYX. A great orange blush looks great on us. It actually gives off like a peachy, orangey vibe. So this in here would have looked amazing, okay? Like a really deep orange, okay? Let's say you didn't want to do that and you really were trying to go with that nude orangey vibe. This one is a little bit more rosy than I think what you were trying to go for, but do you see what I mean? Like, let's put a little depth behind it so that, you know, when people are spending $90 on these palettes, because last year was $85, it really does work. Another color that I think would have been beautiful in this palette is even this. Would have been beautiful in here. You know, so think about your audience. Think about your audience and just be mindful of that. That's what I would say for that. But you can see the Red O shade. I think this is going to be a favorite for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are happy to see this, and I think it's going to show up and look beautiful on a lot of different skin tones. And I do think this would show up on a even deeper skin tone than me, which does make me happy. You know what I mean? Because these are amazing palettes, and I think Hourglass has a great powder formula, right? But they need to be more inclusive. That's just period. They need to be more inclusive. So there's that. And now I want to show you all the highlighters. I'm going to put one on each cheek. So I'm going to start with the first highlighter, and that was the Gilded Strobe Light, right? So that was that first one that I showed. Get my highlighter brush. Pretty. That is beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness, look at her. That's good. That's good. Ooh, We like it. So y'all can see the blush, right? But I feel like it's very faint on camera. And in person, I'm like, yeah, I can see it. It's a light blush, but I can see it. Do you know what I mean? And then the other one, which is the rosy highlighter, which I have to say, I don't actually own any rosy toned highlighter. So I'm happy to have this one. And, you know, I whisked that off. Let's get up in there. And why not just, ooh, look at there. Look at that. Ooh, that's pretty. That's absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness. That's beautiful. What do we think? I'm gonna see if I can build up this blush even more because I really want to see how far this blush will go. I'm like really thinking about my chocolate beauties out there. Yeah, it's gonna be a very soft rose, which Hourglass, I do think you can do a soft peach blush for us, right? But I think, again, being mindful of the audience. A blush that comes to mind for me, I'm jumping around, y'all, but it's just because I have a lot of thoughts about the fact that this shade was put in this palette, and this is the only palette for the deeper skin tones. Another blush that comes to mind for me is like this shade right here from Makeup Geek. What was it called? Mind you, Makeup Geek isn't around anymore, right? But I'm just trying to give ideas. If for some reason somebody from Hourglass is watching, which I doubt. Chivalry, right? I feel like, so this is the Hourglass blush, right? The peachy blush. Hold on, y'all. You know what I mean? Like, and this blush still comes off and gives me, on my skin tone, a peachy vibe. But let's just increase the depth a little bit, Hourglass, so that, you know, number one, it feels like you really are including us and we're not just constantly an afterthought. And number two, the shades actually make sense for us. So I just want as much thoughtfulness put in all the palettes. Let's just be very thoughtful in all the palettes, okay? That would be my criticism. That would be my thought. Be thoughtful in it. Who are you having test these out? Who are you having, you know, what kind of testing is this going through? I would just say be mindful of that. And for those of you that's watching the reviews saying, oh, well, you're giving so many critiques, or, you know, why are you talking so much in that way about Hourglass? This palette is $90, okay? That's basic. As far as I'm concerned, $90 is basically $100. $100, okay? That is a lot of money. I would never sit here and pretend like $100 is not a lot of money. That is a lot of money to me. I don't care how my tax bracket changed. $100 is gonna be a lot of money to me, okay? And so with that in mind, I'm gonna have criticism of anything, right? But I'm trying to give helpful criticism. If this is our palette, let's just be mindful of what's going in here and what's really actually going to look good and flatter our skin tone, because that feels good. That, you know, and I think as a woman of color, a lot of times it does feel like we're an afterthought with a lot of cosmetics brand, not all, but a lot. And so, you know, the bronzer, yes, you did good here. You did good here, okay? We've been asking for a while, but you did good here, okay? But let's just be mindful. Let's just be mindful here. So that's all I would say. That's everything on my face. You could also use this and do a quick eye look, which I will show right quick, because I actually don't have on any. Oh, I didn't bring any eye brushes over here. Maybe I won't show that. I don't have any eye brushes, but you could use this and do a quick eye look. I will be doing more videos on this palette, and when I have tested it out for at least one more week, I will do a final review on this palette and give you my thoughts. A couple of other things I wanted to compare really quick. It's just like, you might want to see like, well, how does that finishing powder look with the other one? So I thought we would do that really quick. So I showed y'all the bronzers, which I think is really what a lot of people care about. So I'm going to show them again. This is the bronzer from this year's palette and the bronzer from last year's palette. Okay, so this year, last year. Very big difference. And I appreciate seeing that. I think the bronzer from this year's palette is much more appropriate for my skin tone and actually really does bronze me. The finishing powders. Oh, I didn't use the finishing powder. Okay, y'all, we'll get there. The finishing powder, oh my God, I'm a mess, is here from this year. And the finishing powder from last year is actually our first shade. Now, I actually like both finishing powders. So finishing powder from this year, finishing powder from last year. Finishing powder from this year, finishing powder from last year. Okay. Now let's show these blushes. So in the new palette, we have the two blushes. We have the peachy blush and we have the red O blush, okay? So we have the peachy blush. Let me just get these down. We have the red O blush, okay? So you can get an idea more of what that peachy blush looks like. So you can see it really does show up on my skin tone, but I will say on the camera, it's like barely picking up. And then last year's palette had 3 blushes in it. So it had, I will have them on the screen. This first blush called Coral Haze. Okay. And then it also had Sunbeam and Mystic Flush. Mystic Flush is actually my favorite. So this is actually my favorite blush from last year. So let me put these down so you can see them. Okay, so blushes from this year, blushes from last year. So that's what I'm saying. A pretty orange blush would have been beautiful in here. Like, let me just show you what I mean. An orange blush looks pretty universally flattering on women of color, in my opinion. Look at this. Can you imagine this orange with this red O shade? Get out of here. Would have been absolutely beautiful. Or like a raspberry. Let's just take one of my favorite raspberry blushes. Look at there. Ah! Look at that. Like, are you kidding? You want to go more muted? Not a problem. Here's one from L'Oreal. Oh my God, that texture from L'Oreal is really nice. Right? So if Hourglass was trying to go for that muted shade, but do you see what I mean? You see this muted shade and this muted shade right here? We need some depth, okay? We need some depth. So that's what I'm saying, okay? That's all I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to look out for the fact that these palettes are expensive. Okay, those swatches are going to be on there. But with that said, let's go ahead and use the finishing powder shade. I'm not going to worry about these swatches. Look, they're like stuck on there. Let's go ahead and use the finishing powder shade, and then I promise I won't take up any more of your time. So I'm going to use this brush right here and go into the finishing powder. And to me, the finishing powder is literally just that. When you're done with every step, just, you know, brings everything together. And this shade I also think is beautiful on my skin. Oh my gosh. I've never really had an Hourglass finishing powder that was this close to my skin tone. So I have used them all over my skin, but this is the first time I feel like I see what people mean when, because a lot of times in videos, people will apply it and then they're like, wow, it just looks a little airbrush, a little pulled together. And listen, honey, I have a lot of skin issues, okay? So airbrush is not something I use often to describe my skin, but there is a softness to it in person, right? I'm talking in person. There's a softness and just a togetherness that I feel like I see on my skin, and I am a fan, okay? So that is everything. I hope this video wasn't too chaotic, and more than anything that it was helpful. I will come back and do a final follow-up review after I've used it a little bit longer. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and I will see you all in another video very soon. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.